Hello friends, hello everyone. February the 19th. We're between the big solar eclipse, which was visible in Antarctica. Here I have a picture of it actually. This is beautiful, gorgeous. And soaking the picture in, you can imagine being there in person, and that's actually the energy which really helps to ground this energy. We are time traveling. That's the year of the fire horse, which just started a few minutes prior to the eclipse. You see 12:00:51. That's exactly midday in Greenwich on the whole zero meridian from North Pole to South Pole on the zero meridian. This is super powerful whenever an alignment happens exactly at midday or midnight. This is really plugging it down into the Earth's body very, very deeply, very intensely. And actually, the same thing happened just a few days prior with that same force of alignment, which was when Saturn entered Aries for the second time. That was on the 14th, just 3 days prior to the eclipse. It's actually interesting, this sequence 14, 17, 20. On the 20th, then Saturn will pull up to Neptune, most exactly. So we are right in between here. So on that 14th of February, you see it was exactly at midnight, within a couple minutes or so. Now, even look at the chart here, 25 degrees Leo midheaven, and the eclipse chart has 26 degrees Leo here at the bottom of the chart. So there's a definite strong connection between the two events. And there were another few really powerful events. I actually mentioned 6 of them between last week's waning half moon, which had exactly the same geometry as the eclipse, which, as I say, happened 11 minutes after the exact new moon. Depending on the geometry, naturally, that's always the moment when the moon is at the center of this stretch of covering the sun. Naturally, because of the different, as I say, special geometry, as that is not or never really exactly at the same moment as the new moon happens, when moon, earth, and sun are perfectly in one line. So, yes, new moon, 10, 11 minutes earlier. So, in other words, the big solar eclipse of February the 17th happened 11 minutes into the year of the fire horse. Now, this is really important because the fire horse really, the moment the new moon was exact, that energy was activated. And the Chinese, they are very practical. They understand that, and that's thousands of years old wisdom, between winter solstice, which is really the beginning of the year, and spring equinox, which is the beginning of the natural year, so to say. That midpoint between these two initial beginning moments, the midpoint is what the Chinese New Year is. Yes, it is depending on the lunar cycle, which makes sense. New moons are beginnings. So it is the second new moon after winter solstice. Winter solstice, if you think of the sun here at 0 Capricorn, and spring equinox, the sun at 0 Aries. So the midpoint is 15 Aquarius, naturally, plus minus 14 days. That is usually what it takes for a lunar cycle. The Chinese understood that the beginning of that new moon was changing the energy in a big way, how we interact with each other. And again, that midpoint between two beginning points is really an interaction point of two different energies of, you could say, time and space. Space being, in that sense, the winter solstice, that deep anchoring into the roots of everything, and time, naturally, most important, starting with spring equinox, as from now on, it really is important to know when to plant the seeds and when to harvest all of that. So that midpoint changes the energy in a big time. So the fire horse, and I wrote down a few words. First of all, that's yang fire. There's always 2 years of the same element in the Chinese. It's very easy. It starts with 0 and 1, which is metal, 2 and 3, which is water, 4 and 5, which is wood, 6 and 7, which is fire, 8 and 9 is earth. And then it starts over again. So that already tells you what element you were having in your Chinese astrology, if you're not aware of that yet. So now you know. Anyway, 6 and 7 is fire. You're coming out of 2 wood years. Wood is nourishing fire. So what happened in the last 2 years is nourishing what happens now. The yang fire of the number 6 is outward oriented. It's fast, speed, courage, freedom, independence, sovereignty, momentum, honesty, bravery, motion, passion, truth. The fire horse is totally unapologetic, has no fear. And Sagittarius, which is connected with the horse energy, is kind of some degree the sign which represents the horse. Naturally, the centaur, if you want. And Sagittarius is the enlightening fire. As we look at the fire trine, the Aries is the initiating archetypal fire, then Leo, the warming fire, so to say, and then Sagittarius is the enlightening fire, which brings the spark of spirit into our sphere. And exactly that is happening. This is an amazing year. This is a one of a kind, never happened before. This is a truly new beginning we're at. And probably the most strong indicator of that is what will happen tomorrow, actually, which is Saturn and Neptune's exact conjunction at 0 degrees and 45 minutes. I guess I have the chart here. Let's see. I thought here it is. Yes, I mean, this chart alone would warrant to talk for a whole recording. I might do that but first of all, I want to give you the bigger picture here. So yes, it's the year of the fire horse, which really changed the energy in a big way. And interesting, not only is the eclipse here just very close to the midheaven, again in resonance with that Saturn ingress into Aries chart, the 26th degree of Leo and Aquarius. And by the way, the last 5 degrees of a sign, according to Rudihar's understanding, is individual mental energy, very important. So this is a phase where every individual is experiencing the situation in their own unique way. And I, again, want to quickly teach you, as I like to combine teaching with my lectures here. So the first 5 degrees is actional, from 5 to 10 is emotional, cultural, from 10 to 15 is individual mental, and then it repeats from the 16th to the 20th degree, again actional, in that sense cardinal, the center 5 degrees here from 21st to 25th. That is again emotional cultural, which is very much how we plug in to the collective, into the common field, as the guides put it, and that is Paul Selig's connection to higher wisdom, which is amazing. I have just attended a workshop with him for the last 5-6 days, and it is amazing, an online workshop, I should say. I will get back to that in a minute because this is really relevant. These guides are pretty much an eternal source of intelligence, the universal mind, all the ascended masters. That's my understanding. That's a collective of ascended masters, and they say they are having supported humanity, particularly in phases like we are now in, of extremely accelerated evolutionary speed. We're moving at lightning speed, so that's why we get all that help. And then, as suddenly this has become aware to many, many more people, there's a strong and definite interaction between the visible world and invisible world. All these guides and entities and ETs or whatnot you call them, interdimensionals, they are here to help. We have a whole greater choreography which is supporting this evolutionary quantum leap we are just about to happen within the next 6 weeks, the guides say, between now and spring equinox. More on that in a minute. So it was amazing to see the first degree of Cancer here rising in Greenwich again as the fractal single point. We are experiencing Earth, because it is the navel, it is where the umbilical cord is really attached. That is where for thousands of years it has been reported in that location. That's very close, I guess, to Stonehenge and all these sacred sites where ancient cultures had a very direct connection to the universe. It's the angle. I mean, first of all, it's on the zero meridian, which makes lots of sense. And the second reason is it's an exact seventh of a circle above the equator, 5126, and the fraction is the exact angle of a septile. So you see, it's merely a few minutes of arc away. The Royal Conservatory. So anyway, that is the quick reason why we choose Greenwich. Many astrologers do that, by the way. So this moment charted here for the fractal chart of Earth with this first degree of Cancer rising. The first degree of Cancer is a change in direction. It's from outward motion. It starts coming back to source. That's really, it's a 180-degree turn. The sun has culminated here at 29 degrees, 59 in Gemini, has flown up, escaped almost into the heavens, ever higher, climbing over the northern hemisphere where 90% of the human population are living. So that's why northern hemisphere is definitely always the one which is in that sense just carries more weight in the equation. So it is the highest point the sun can fly, and then it reaches that culmination point, that 0 degrees Cancer, and then it starts already descending again back towards midnight, back towards the winter solstice. So this is a real change of direction. It's almost that moment, for example, when you throw a ball into the air, where the ball stands still and then starts, gravity takes over again, brings it down back to Earth. That's kind of the image you can have here. So this is always a powerful sign of shift in a new direction when the 0 degree Aries and Capricorn are showing up in a chart. 10 minutes later, yes, we have the eclipse exact. And I could say so many things about this chart alone. I just want to really focus it in on a few outstanding alignments. The most outstanding is the lunar north node conjunct Venus. Venus plays a very special role that gives away, and that is true. Venus became evening star on January the 6th. I have made a recording on that. It was a very important turning point. Venus going for 10 minutes, for 10 months, starting as a morning star after its retrograde phase, and then when it comes half its orbit around the sun and Earth in that mutual dance, when it's behind the sun, then it shifts from morning star to evening star. That means it is ahead of the sun. And in that sense, when the sun sets, Venus is still in the sky. Yes, it takes a while for it to have enough elongation from the sun. It's now, you see, that was January 6th when they had a conjunction. Now by February 17, actually, it's exactly 10 degrees. Another really interesting fact, 2850 versus 851. That's 1/36th of a circle. That is a very important, powerful minor aspect, you could call it. So there's a resonance there too. And the north node is the evolutionary direction in Pisces. That is really it's the most spiritual sign, I guess, that can easily be said. So the direction is into the spiritual, higher perspective of reality. And that's exactly what we are challenged with, to lift our perspective to higher dimension, to come out of that separation mode. That's really what it is, that we divide reality into good and bad, into evil and divine. But just, and that is the message of the guides, just think everything has been made by God. It's the polarity. We have to rise above it and see, yes, there has to be justice down there, has everything has to be revealed. And that is exactly the thing which is happening. Again, Saturn and Neptune conjunct in the first degree of Aries. I said it many times. This is Saturn pulling the invisibility cloth, the cloak of the mask of Neptune. It gets truly demasked, exposed. Neptune, which is the planet in that sense, which represents that confusion, that deceit, that all of that we were left in the dark and the unknown, living in illusions and fantasies and wrong ideas about reality on a very basic level. And Saturn is now remedying this. Saturn always comes in as a reality check. That's its basic role. And it is interesting that Saturn just entered Aries 3 days ago, or 5 days ago now, on the 14th, as we said. So this already had been starting a whole new cycle of physical manifestation. Saturn is the planet which really gives us shape and form, also creates gravity, and in that sense can weigh us down, can make things slower than we would like it to be, because it has to go step by step. That's the thing about the three-dimensional or four-dimensional reality we're in, time and space in that sense, is that things are needing time to grow. To one stone after the other, we built the walls of a big cathedral or structure, tower. It's a process, and I guess that's exactly what Saturn is teaching us. And sometimes this is can mean endurance, persistence, patience. Anyway, Saturn entering Aries, and now in Aries for the next 2+ years, is the rooting, the anchoring of a whole new way of manifesting on this planet. And with Neptune there too, they are working as a team. And then on the positive side, I should mention that too, Neptune definitely has all these great ideas, and Saturn gives them weight, gives them form too. It works on both ends. But I guess the most important is, first of all, the revelatory part of pulling off the masks and making everything visible. Yes, it's a tough time in that sense, having the light fully turned on. The guys really said that nicely, that yes, most people, they say actually on this planet, and we're in for a collective lift into a higher dimension. That's really what's happening. That is one first one on this planet, they tell us, to of that magnitude upgrade. So they say most of us people are encoded in ourselves, programmed to blossom. How about that? And well, they say there certainly are some which are still in denial. However, they say yes, before maybe there was a flickering light, and you can kind of pretend you're seeing nothing because it's not really lit up enough. But now the light grows bright, and so bright that nobody can ignore it anymore. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. It's all the things we do not like to see, which are painful, which are difficult, which are polarizing us. And it is important to let it all into the open. And it is just our mere participation in recognition which is shifting the energies in a big way, because it is, as the guides say, behold, I make all things new. Behold, we make all things new by the way we are seeing these things. That does not mean, again, that we are justifying anything which is wrong. Justice has to be served, yes, in the right way, not as a revenge. But you see, just think that way. I mean, all these dark characters, perpetrators, they were born too, they were little children, too innocent little children, and then for some reason or other, they were programmed with some wrong beliefs, maybe even their personality, their soul mission overridden, possessed, you could say. Oracle Girl says it's an interdimensional energy which is growing its tentacles into biological life, as they have no form, these interdimensional energies. And so they pretty much are like parasites. So that's how we should see it. So we have to see the good core in every human being, even in a Jeffrey Epstein and whatever you call them. At some point they were children, they were innocent, and we have to see that in them, and then we can separate the overriding energy from the essence of their being, and by pure recognition, the spell is broken, I would say. It's like probably what exorcism was all about. However, whatever. I mean, there were many malpractices too in that sense, and that's definitely a tricky territory. But it is that recognition that everything in at its very root is divine. We're all connected. There's no separation. That is the big step which we are taking as a humanity. I said in one of my last recordings, the 29th degree of Aquarius is a chrysalis, which is popping open. It's the birth of the butterfly. I mean, how much better can it get? And it's the eclipse which initiates a whole new Chinese year, which happens not very often. About every 18 years, we have new moons, which are eclipses in the sign Aquarius. That's the 18-year cycle of the lunar nodes, which is also known as the Saros cycle. Every 18 years, an eclipse of the same family happens, but that's yet another story. I might do another recording just even on that alone to see how this February 17 eclipse links into the bigger family of that cycle, and they all have a common denominator, a base energy. Actually, I should quickly show it as I have it here. So the first eclipse of that series happened in 944, and I have here a few screenshots I wanted to share with you. First, as this is Paul Selig, the one who channels the guides. These are some of his latest intensives, which I both participated. Just the last one here in February, 12 to 16, Higher Will. Yes, amazing. He always channels for at least half an hour, gives the latest update from the guides, and which is really remarkably what's the word, reflecting on what is happening right now on the planet Earth. It has actual meaning, and they, even though they don't give names or say anything in particular, it's easy to understand where they're going with it. So just maybe a few quotes here from that latest series of transmissions. They say, first of all, what I already mentioned, they say the 6 weeks coming, and that is very rare. They give a timeline. I guess the last time they gave it to Paul was pre-COVID, when they said something really huge is coming, so you better get out of New York and find a better place to live. And that's the message he definitely understood, and he's now living in Hawaii. I guess he is an amazing worker. He transmits. He works as a radio, basically. That's what he describes himself. So they said the next 6 weeks, change of all things occurring in front of your very eyes. And they say we are experiencing an altercation of reality, which I looked that word up in the thesaurus, and says a tumult, a rapture, a blow up, a brouhaha. These were just a few of the synonyms which I found were really explaining altercation. They say it is the greatest transformation this world has ever known, as I already said. They say so we are, what is out of alignment is not reclaimed through force, but through recognition. Again, what I said before, it is that laser sharp understanding how which is able to see to the root, to the core of every being, and seeing that divine spark within, which gives life, the monad, as the guides call it, that part each of us carries, which is the spark of divinity. And that's what they guide us also to identify with, to move to the upper room, as they say. Very beautiful image. Just lift yourself up to a higher place and you will see everything in a different perspective. What I often have said, climbing up to the apex of the pyramid, just gives you an image. You're on top of a high structure and you're overseeing everything. And that is a choice. We can go there any moment and see things from without running them through the grid of our belief system, but just purely empty of judgment, just see how things are. Anyway, all of that about Paul Selig and the guides, and I will definitely put the internet address, the link below here, the video. As always, please go there. I also give you a little bit of a perspective on my recording. Even it's not that I tell you what I will record on. I usually it's more of a reflection on, again, from a different perspective. Anyway, and if you like it, and whatever, share it and subscribe. That's always most wonderful to have more subscribers, as motivating. So this is the list of the solar eclipses which are contained in that Saros cycle 121, which, as I say, started in 944 AD with the first eclipse. Here you see it, and that's the chart for this. The I should say the map where this partial eclipse first touched Earth. You see, it's each family of eclipses either comes from the north or from the South Pole, and then over the 13 centuries moves over the globe every 18 years, producing another eclipse. And this is what it looks like. This is kind of a beautiful little GIF they created here. You see, it starts, it just goes a little too fast. I would love it to be much, much slower. So you see, it starts with the North Pole, and slowly over time, that center point is where the eclipse is most exact at its center, and in the end, it enters, it leaves the planet again on the other end 13 centuries after. So this is the first one, and this is the one we just were experiencing here, visible in the Antarctica. Again, I said that's what's very special in itself too, as we know all the rumors of secrets connected to Antarctica. Many people think once that is disclosed, then everything changes, which is probably related to the bigger experience we are going through, being enlightened, getting to fully grasp the completion, the complete perspective of all 360 degrees in all directions, getting that overview. And yes, I guess that's what I wanted to show you now. Yes, let's leave it at this for now. As I say, I would like to do a special recording on the integration of this present eclipse into the big cycle. Let's see if I get there. I give you the reasons already here. That would be just kind of taking it to a deeper level. So this is the chart I want to show you. This is the first eclipse, first solar eclipse of that series, 944. Now, first of all, Jupiter is exactly midheaven, actually in the heliocentric chart even more so, 2417, 2423. This in itself says this is an extremely important and bright series of eclipses belonging to this cycle. Leo rising, and the eclipse is happening in Taurus, which you will see here more clearly in the geocentric chart, the 10th degree of Taurus. Anyway, what I want to point out is the black moon here. That is the lunar apogee. The mean lunar apogee means where the moon is farthest away from Earth, which is the shadow point, the collective shadow point, and that's what I want to show you. This is exactly opposite where the eclipse is taking place, 2747. This one from 17th of February. You see 2747, and the eclipse is at 2850. So that black moon here is conjunct Earth, Earth on the other side. When the sun is in Aquarius, yes, Earth must be on the other side. If we would stand on the sun, we look in the other direction against the constellation of Leo. So this in itself shows, yes, this is the integration of shadows which we are meant to experience. Now, Uranus is very clearly here the energetic center point, easy to see with that powerful T-square here between Sun and Moon, Uranus and Sedna and Earth, and that black moon from the original chart. This is explosive, but also taking us to deep depths of insight and of understanding, which is Sedna in Gemini. I wrote a few keywords down here for Uranus because it's truly Uranus which is the planet which gets the most points in a way in this present geometry, the most focus. So Uranus is the light bringer. It's electric, magnetic. It's the shaker, the disruptor. Uranus brings the unexpected. Uranus is very energetic, is about innovation, surprise, very refined and eclectic and different and other. And that is the word actually the guides again use, other, as being something beyond our imagination, even something really different. And with Sedna together, Sedna, the one who comes back from a 11,000 plus year journey around the sun, there's a big vault of wonderful memories and historic records which Sedna brings back into the light. Gemini, naturally, the sign of communication. No surprise there. Sedna is in Gemini now, probably a bit more than a year. So anyway, let me show you something else now. This is the chart for that same eclipse of 2 days ago, for where it was most exact overhead at its center in Antarctica, which is at 84 degrees, sorry, 64, 65 degrees south, southern hemisphere, southern latitude. So as you can see here on the other picture, it is still quite a bit away. Here you have the it doesn't really give the degrees here of the of latitude, but this must be 64, 65 degrees. So it's actually just at the edge of this Antarctic continent here at the coast. Again, show you this picture once more, just to reconnect to that energy, just soak it in. Yeah, just a tiny bit, a little bit of sun still sneaking out around that shape of the moon with the diamond ring, these flares which become visible when most of the sun is covered. So this is the chart for that place, and what you see, Saturn and Uranus here conjunct. Actually, Saturn and Uranus, sorry, Sedna and Uranus will have their exact conjunction on May the 24th, respectively, May the 31st, heliocentric and geocentric within a week. This will be a most powerful time. As I said many times, it is three big conjunctions, which are kind of the three pillars of our present transformation, which is, yes, Uranus and Sedna, Saturn and Neptune, obviously, and the third one being Chiron and Aries. Chiron really digging up all the lies and wrong information. That is what we see happening here, and Aries being the, I would say, the goddess which does not allow for undercurrent unresolved issues under the table. She brings everything out into the light, and Chiron is definitely very much on the same page. So they have that strong energy together to unearth everything and break it open, regardless, even if it's disruptive, even if it's creating conflict at first and controversy. This is the way to go, they say. And with Ceres here, the earth goddess, here in the eclipse chart, well, they bring it really also down to the physical earth, to make earth itself express that disruption in a way. And yes, that's another thing I really wanted to quote from the guides. They say, yes, behold, we make all things new. What I give my mind to is recreated. Transition, not destruction. Very important. That's actually really what I want to tell you. Transition, not destruction, unless, they say, the foundation needs to be rebuilt. So where we see destruction, that is obviously the requirement that things have to really to be built up from ground again. Also, they say what is to be happening is, here go over my notes. So it is not that what we are arriving at is the end result. It's actually just the beginning. It's the moment we see the potential of what can be changed, of what has to be evolved to a higher state. So it is really the start of a big project, if you want. And we are laying the foundations with the intentions. That is what's happening. Anyway, this is a powerful. Now I want to show you something else. So this is again the chart for that moment in Antarctica where the eclipse was most powerful, directly overhead. See the strange chart here with ascendant and midheaven almost less than 30 degrees apart. So this would be the ascendant. This would be the first quadrant, first three houses, and then 4, 5, 6, second quadrant, very small. Third quadrant again, really huge. And the ascendant 23 degrees Gemini here, 23 degrees Gemini. That was when Sedna had its moment of stationing, going back to direct motion, stationary direct. That's the shortage ST I use here. Stationary direct means that is down to the second when Sedna, here she is completely standing still, and from now on again for the next 7 months or so to move forward again. Again, these direction changes, for those of you who are not really aware of or clear on that yet, is only because of Earth's own motion. We are moving relatively fast, and it's like when you move along another car on another lane. If you accelerate a little bit, then the other car falls behind, and if you go onto the brake a little bit, the other car beside you on the other lane comes forward again. That's kind of what we are seeing with these outer planets going forward and backwards, because Earth goes forward and backwards as it goes around the sun. So anyway, these are important moments when the direction changes, because from now on, from this moment on the 12th of February, with the moon in that 23rd degree here of Sagittarius and the ascendant at the ascendant. So that means the moon is particularly powerful here for the next 7 months in terms of Sedna's energy to come to outer expression. The moon, again, representing naturally many things. It's our inner child in many ways. Emotional response, the changing moods and frequencies we're going through. It's like it connects us to the water in our body, the moon. The moon also in a bigger way is the people, the collective, even the collective emotional state of this planet. Now, the moon is here in a beautiful large trine, you see, with Sedna and Aries, Aries and Chiron. Yeah, Chiron exactly at the third house, at the root of this chart. You see, it's really magical. We can pull up almost any important chart right now, and we will see a similarity in expression. So anyway, just wanted to show you the connection here again. That is another of the 6 events which happened in these last 7 days or so. And then maybe for those of you who are really curious, it was, as I said, waning half moon was the big one, which had exactly the same geometry as the eclipse chart here, that fourth degree of Cancer rising, and that midheaven in the 29th degree of Aquarius, where actually Venus was a week ago. And actually, yeah, you have to go back to that recording. It's really worth it. It really shows the beauty and the power of how nature works in different moments in time, interacting with each other, locking into a bigger structure, which accumulates weight, if you would say that way, and becomes something which gains substance, and in that sense puts deep stakes into the ground, which allow these energies then to manifest, to properly take root. I guess that's the best way to describe it. So the fourth degree of Cancer, and was in at the ascendant a week ago, in the waning half moon. Then it was Venus entering Pisces on that same day, the 10th of February. That was Venus again as being that super important planet, as I laid out already. Venus, which is about harmonization and compassion, and understanding that we are all one, that we are all resonating into this, in the same oceanic universe, that all is part of creation. And Venus will now rise higher and higher into the night sky. Yes, it has just now the elongation of 10 degrees. So right now, if you are in a place where there's kind of a flat horizon, just short after sunset, when it starts getting dark, you should see Venus just slightly above the horizon in the evening sky. And over the coming weeks and months, Venus will rise higher and higher, which really shows in a big, beautiful way how that energy of the evening star, of creating harmony for everyone. Again, morning star being more personal, caring for oneself to fulfill one's needs and desires. And then as it turns into an evening star, it shows its other side, which is much more social and sharing. Now what I have been giving to myself is now in there in abundance, and I can share it, give it to the greater field, to the collective. So it's all as good as it can get, really. Yes, there is some how to say, naturally we can see that there is also stuff which has to be digested, which is not that easy to work with. And I will show you, it's as we go, but mainly it is super positive. We have Mars conjunct Vesta. Vesta is the holy fire, so to say. It is the altar, the eternal flame on the altar, and where the servants, God's servants, who live in the temple, so to say, just for that reason, to make sure the fire, the light never is extinguished, which were, according to the story, I guess, young women serving the divine, so to say, symbolic. So whenever Vesta appears, this is kind of the undertone. There's a deep commitment, a religious, spiritual endeavor. you give your life for it almost. And naturally this can in a negative way seen also mean fanatism and just yes, you get the picture, but it is an intensity in Vesta, and when it's with Mars in the sign of Aquarius, this is working for humanity, for the common good. And yes, it is still also Pluto naturally in Aquarius here, which is one of the key drivers too of this whole evolutionary shift, even though I haven't mentioned it much, but it's already kind of old news. We know we deal with that for 2 years already. Definitely has set fire in the roof of our society. But the one last thing here before I let you go is I want to take you back to this chart once more, which is really the bigger picture of the change of the collective field. Jupiter and Saturn cycle takes 20 years for Jupiter and Saturn, the two biggest planets, to have a conjunction. Jupiter and Saturn show the socio-economic big cycles, the big shifts in society. 2020 in December, we had the well-reported conjunction at in the first degree of Aquarius, which was really the beginning of this new age. Yes, which started with definitely with an on an unpleasant note, kind of set the scene for a bigger evolutionary shift to take place. And naturally, it started us off at the deep end of the pool with what we experienced in the year 2020, which was kind of foreseeable because it was also a difficult energy in general with that birth of the new cycle. Anyway, we have come out of it and have entered the second stage on January the 27th, 2025. That's now a bit more than a year, when Jupiter and Saturn had an exact 90-degree angle, which is equivalent to the waxing half moon. The first quadrant, the waxing square, which is the most yang moment in a cycle. It is when you're in the middle of the climb up the hill, when you have your adrenaline really activated and you're a doer, achiever. That's the energy of the first rising, the waxing square, so to say. So the first whatever 5 years then were setting the stage, and now the second 5 years into 2030, this is what I call the confrontational phase, where, and this is again an archetypal pattern, but we are within this 5-year phase of confrontational. Then comes the time of negotiation and of integration finally into the year 2040. So this is kind of the bigger picture. We are now, since January 2025, in this confrontational phase. And what I really want to show you and hint and point toward is Uranus rising, still here a few degrees away from Sedna, but definitely these two again are dominating the scene of this 5-year cycle being born. That is when they had their one and only square in the heliocentric geometry. That's definitely the most important, because only one time every I mean, every aspect only appears once. That's what I want to say, because from the sun's perspective, the planets always move in the same direction. It's not what we described before. Because of Earth's motion, from Earth's perspective, we see these outer planets kind of swing forth and back. So this is really the center point of their 90-degree separation, which sparked a new epoch, a new chapter in this evolution. And interesting is that we had a perfect Saturn Mars Pluto opposition on that day. Again, squaring here, not as exact, but still the equatorial point is very exactly squared, meaning that there is this is a forceful ride, lots of momentum, and again, very much links into the fire horse energy, Mars Pluto. I could see that is one of the expressions again of that forceful and intentful journey toward greater, higher ideals. Aries, again, the one not giving in before the truth and nothing but the truth is clearly the center point of everything. There's a few more things I wanted to say in this chart. Let me see if I find it. This 63, that is okay. Okay, yes, Arrowcot. 2419 here. Those of you who are regularly listening to me know about Arrowcot a bit already. Arrowcot is the one which reveals the full picture. All of a sudden, all the pieces of the puzzle fall in place. Arrowcot is the farthest away from the sun body, if you want, small planet, which has been closely inspected, visited by a probe, by a space probe, New Horizon, on January the 1st, 2019, actually, after having visited Pluto. That mission was expanded and Arrowcot was chosen and became the one who, after they analyzed all the data which were transmitted from that satellite with all the close-up pictures, after all that information was processed, scientists had to rewrite the history of the whole solar system. So they had a big revelation of things being different than what they thought prior. That's kind of the energy of Arrowcot. It opens the book in a way that we start understanding things in a greater context. And again, to go back to this year's signature. Where is it? Okay, give me a minute. Okay, so we have 25. Okay, bear with me. Which chart is it where it's really resonating? Well, I mean, it resonates with many charts again. Let me see. The most important one again is with Aries, naturally. Arrowcot and Aries. So they work together as a team again. Anyway, I guess you understand my excitement of where we're going here. And again, I leave the links below, and I guess I have to let you go anyway. So thank you for joining in and listening, and talk to you soon again. Bye bye. Love you all.